Hi, welcome to this video where I'm going to share more information about the new HSK 7 to 9 levels advanced exam. The actual exam, the first time it's going to be available is going to be on Saturday. But this last Sunday, all of us who registered for the exam had a chance to try the mock test. The mock test had the exact same question types as a real exam, just fewer questions, so it took less time. Now, is the difficulty going to be the same or not? That is yet to be seen, but this is the best information so far that we know about this exam. So let's dive in one by one, section by section, on what kind of exam this is according to the mock exam and what to expect. First part in the exam, we have a listening, and during the mock exam, which is a little bit shorter, we had 3 different listening exercises. The first one was a story about a jewelry store, and based on what you were hearing, you had to choose correct answer for multiple choice questions. Second one was an interview of a pet photographer photographing dogs and cats, and based on that listening, you had to do both multiple choice and also to type in your answers. These type of typing answers were around 1 sentence long. Then the third listening was a more news type of audio text about the women's volleyball team and their history and how they have since gotten success. For this as well, we had both multiple choice questions and write down your own answers. Audio material wise, I thought that the audio texts were of similar difficulty to HSK 6 as well, but the big difference being that in many of these questions you had to write down your own answers, meaning you cannot just guess something, you actually have to type it in. For listening, most important is that you have a certain system to know how to do this type of exams, because you can only listen to the material once, it will not be repeated. So you have to either concentrate on listening and then remember all of that, or you have to find a way how to listen and look at the answers, answer options and the questions at the same time. So you have to train to be focused. For example, you could try doing listening mock exercises at a busy Starbucks, for example, to train that kind of a concentration. And at this level of HSK Advanced, you should be able to listen to native podcasts and news without too much trouble. So that's around the level where we are. So that's for listening. Listening, no big surprises there compared to HSK 6, I would say. Next one was reading in the mock exam. It was a little bit shorter. We again had 3 articles here. The first one was about a Nordic tribe and the transportation methods, and this was a multiple choice question types. The second article was on the early bank system in China, and you were required to type in your short answers. And the third one was a health-related topic, but this was an article that was each paragraph were cut and they were put in a mix and match order. So they gave you what is the first paragraph of this article, and the rest 5 paragraphs you had to put in the correct order to make a sensible article. You also had 1 paragraph that did not belong to this article, so you had to know which one doesn't belong and leave that out. Now, with this reading, I would say the level of the text was similar to HSK 6 as well. There are some very specific vocabulary in there, but for advanced reader, you probably are able to kind of read along it and between the lines. And if you understand the general context, you are already able to answer a lot of these questions. What you might be able to improve, for myself included, is obviously learning more vocabulary. At this point, your reading speed also should be quite fast, so you might want to check on that when you're doing exercises to time yourself and have the skills to scan the text, because you probably don't have time to read all of it. So you have to see the questions and then go through this text, scanning it and finding out the correct answers that way. Next, we had writing, and we had two different types of text to write. The first one was a 200 character text on analyzing survey results. This survey was about building the knowledge of environmental protection, and it was a very simple graph on the reasons why people are more interested in this topic and the percentage for each. So you have to know some basic language on describing this kind of a graph in 200 characters. The next one was an opinion piece of 600 characters. It gave an example or topic on living a simple and frugal life through this one author and his book. And then you had to write your own opinions and ideas on that for 600 characters. Now here, what could be probably done better is, if you learning, for myself included, to learn more formal language and to learn more formal grammar structures and vocabulary. I'm only speculating, but maybe that could get better points there. All in all, I felt the writing was okay as well. Then came the written translation part, and this gave a one paragraph of English text on the topic of how people under stress they emit a certain type of smell, and dogs can recognize it as well. So it's a very short paragraph. I'm gonna put an example somewhere here, and then you have to translate that into Chinese. I thought that part was okay as well. There was a few very specific words I did not know how to say in Chinese. For example, post-traumatic stress disorder. I did not know the word in Chinese, so instead I just wrote PTSD and a couple of other those. But in a sense, the English text was easy to understand. So far, this was all happening in the morning. So we had listening, reading, writing, and written translation. And I would say I was expecting it to be even harder. But obviously, we have to remember this is the HSK levels 7 to 9. So perhaps level 7, it means you have passed. But if you want to get to level 9, you probably have to improve quite a lot, getting from 7 to 8 and to 9 as well. Then came the afternoon with the spoken and oral part, where the challenges began. So first we had oral translation, and again this was a one paragraph of English text in front of us. This time we just had to translate it to spoken Chinese, and there was a little bit time given for preparation, and the screen also had a little text area where you could type in your kind of draft. If you had time, there's not a lot of time to prepare for this one. The text was easy to understand, but the challenge comes from looking at the English text and say it in Chinese, because the English and the Chinese word order are vastly different. So if you start just translating word by word, it will come out as Chinglish. So this was actually something that looked easy, because the English text was very easy, but it's actually very difficult to do. So this is something I personally have to practice a lot in this coming 5 days before the actual exam. The topic of this text was about workplace problems. So vocabulary-wise, it wasn't too difficult. Next, we had a speaking exam with a few different type of exercises. The first one was the easiest, like kind of a close to real life, daily life translation, oral translation. It was a screenshot of a museum booking with the time you've booked it and then what you need to pay attention to when you're going in, like bring your passport, your health code, temperature should not be above so and so. And so you have to time to look at this and then share this in spoken form to your foreign friend in Chinese. This one I thought was rather easy to do. This is very much daily life translation skills. Then the spoken exam got gradually a lot harder. The second one, we were listening to a speech of 2 to 3 minutes. This was a Xiaomi company representative giving a speech about their new phone with different functions. So this was tech related with lots of tech related vocabulary as well. So this was already a little bit harder to understand the details. The general ideas was okay, but the details were harder to understand. And it was very long. During this time, you could not pause the audio. Only you can type in some of your ideas on the text area there on the screen. But again, you have to develop those skills that I'm lacking right now on how to listen and write those notes at the same time, and not happen that when you type in something, you forget to listen. Because after this 3 minutes and a half and this speech is over, you will hear different types of questions being asked about the text. First, there were some specific questions on who did they thank in the beginning of the speech, what was so special about this phone, and so on. And finally, the last question was a little bit longer on what is your opinion how technology affects the daily life. So that answer had to be a little bit longer. So you have to be able to just start speaking without too much preparation and talk a lot. Last part was probably the hardest of it all. First, you would listen to a little story from an official back in the day and about their ethics of serving the people and the country and not just thinking about themselves. So this was more like a history, politics, ethics type of a listening material. It wasn't very long, and after this you were given a task to discuss these kind of ethics yourself, and you had to talk for about 2 to 3 minutes on your opinions. The difficult part was that after listening to the story, they gave this specific task on what to talk about for 3 minutes. And this task included some vocabulary and idioms I was not 100% sure of what the meaning was. Meaning, I was kind of supposed to talk for 2 minutes without being 100% sure what I was supposed to be talking about. You had time to prepare for this one, but still, whatever I could prepare was maybe like half a minute or a little bit longer. So this is definitely a skill have to prepare for the coming days, or if you're planning to take this exam later on how to talk lengthily on a certain topics, sharing your ideas in a spoken form. And if this happens again or happens to you, that you are not 100% sure the task or what to say on how to talk a little bit more without actually not saying much. Perhaps, there's only just a little chance you might get a couple of points there, just being able to articulate very well. And obviously, speaking format is very different to be on a speaking test than in daily life speaking. Which in daily life speaking, I don't see really much problems for myself. But once you're on exam, even a learner have been learning Chinese for 10 years can get a little bit nervous, and you maybe start to talk a little fast, and then you already finished speaking, and there's still 2 minutes left for you to speak, and you really don't know what to say. So these are things to pay attention to. So all in all, I thought the written part was okay, it was fine, but the spoken part, especially the lengthy listen and answering questions spoken format, and then this talking about your opinions and such, was very, very challenging. So this is all that we know about exams so far. I'm very happy that I got this chance to try out the test before the real deal. So I have a good idea on what to concentrate during these 5 days. So for me personally, after HSK 6 and just been using the language for years since then, for me, what I will concentrate on some of just the testing techniques on how to listen and look at the answer options or write down notes at the same time, just practicing on this one. Then some more formal language structures and vocabulary for writing those texts. Then definitely practicing the oral translation. And when you just suddenly get a paragraph of English out of nowhere and you just have a minute or two to prepare for that. And finally, obviously, on just getting a more advanced topic and talking about the topic for 3 minutes. So those are my focus for this coming week to prepare for this exam. So all in all, something a little bit easier than I thought. Something that looked easy at first, but was actually very difficult when you started doing that. I hope this has been helpful. If you're also planning to take the new HSK 7 to 9 levels advanced exam, please do leave a comment so we can discuss over there. Thank you for watching.